Wasn't until they did more investigation and found that it was due to jalapenos. Now, of course, in many cases, the common factor is that tomatoes, what they were looking at, and jalapenos, and even lettuce, you mentioned earlier, we don't typically cook those. Cooking is the only significant kill step when it comes to salmonella. And so when we have produce as an ingredient, as a side dressing or topping with the meal, and it's not cooked, you can have a perfectly cooked meal, but now you have something on your plate that did not receive a kill step in a situation where contamination took place way earlier in the farm to fork cycle.
So I know that investigators were able to trace these illnesses back to that specific farm in Mexico and the U.S. distributor. Do we know if any other places might be impacted? We saw Chipotle and Cordova pulling jalapenos from their menu.
We typically find this out. It's the larger companies that end up getting the media coverage or start to make, because of the size of their operation, they start to make these bigger decisions. But in almost every case, you have a single major distributor who's also distributing these products, in this case, jalapenos, to other restaurants, to retailers, and to other sources. We've seen a lot of shift in the last 5 or 6 years in terms of our food system with shifting, and there are also people that will buy directly from the source. So it's not outside the realm of possibility that, in addition to restaurants and retail establishments, that these could be foods that are directly sold to consumers. And it's very important that people understand that a we have to treat these things as if it's possible that they are contaminated. If you think you bought these items, you need to find out and act accordingly, according to a recall. But we need to take into consideration the most vulnerable populations. The very young, the elderly, those with a compromised immune system, and those who are pregnant are the ones who are most likely to become sick and to seek medical attention and to be hospitalized, and in some of the worst cases, even die. It's also important to note that when you have a number of cases, realize that's the number of reported cases. There are many experts and evidence to show that with some outbreaks, you'll have a pathogen involved with the food, and for every one case that gets reported, up to 25, 27, 28 cases go unreported. I would imagine that you've probably said, "Oh, I don't feel right. I have a stomach bug, a stomach flu, must be something I ate." You didn't go get tested and report to the health department. That's what happens in many of these cases. You have a number that's reported of confirmed cases. You have a number of cases that are unreported that's much larger.
So you're mentioning maybe having these symptoms. What are some of the symptoms that it might be something more serious than just a stomach bug, and it might be something like salmonella?
Many times the persistence, when you have everything from impacted renal operation or like we kept talking about with the cyclospora, you look at the idea of explosive diarrhea, there's a range of symptoms. And I think that it's one of those things where when it goes beyond the kind of like the 24-hour, it's a stomach bug, a stomach flu, something I ate kind of thing, when you start to have that persistent symptoms, whether it is the nausea, the loss of appetite, or impacting your renal or other functions, that's when you need to get tested. And do keep in mind that when you get tested, all the doctor can tell you is whether a pathogen is in your gut or not. It's very important once the test results come back and if it shows that you're positive for, in this case, salmonella, to work with the health department to try to find out what exactly was the cause of this. And yeah, you can't necessarily, go back in time and undo what happened to you, but perhaps you have a piece of information that could be the missing puzzle piece that helps find the cause and help to resolve an outbreak as soon as possible.
So we saw both Chipotle and Cordova remove those jalapenos from their menu. Does that mean it's safe for people to start eating there again?
That's a good question. On one hand, you could say, well, it's just tied to that one ingredient. That's what we know at this point. I like the fact that these restaurants are being proactive in removing these ingredients. We also saw Taco Bell was removing lettuce from their products only a few weeks ago. You need to look at the fact that if these products were in those kitchens need to be properly sanitized. And that there needs to be some additional training there. But I hate to say that everything's safe now, just go back to the way you're doing things. I'd like to think that in reality, people are learning from this, they're improving upon this, and they're realizing that, there's always a potential. Just like driving down the road, there's no guarantee that any road is safer than another. But what do we do? We wear seatbelts, we have airbags, we try to be proactive, right? We try to be safe drivers. Same thing with our food. We need to be safe and educated consumers who say, hey, I'm going to take this risk, but I know myself and I'm a healthy adult, but I'm not going to put this person who's a guest or part of my family who may be more at risk and increase their chances of becoming sick and the likelihood and severity for someone who is again, very young, elderly, pregnant, or has a compromised immune system. I would say we need to continue to be as safe as we can.
For somebody who's watching right now who might have jalapenos in their fridge, should they A, throw them away, B, wash them and eat them, or do you have a better recommendation?
Uh, Most cases, what you want to do is return those to where you bought them from. If you are sick and suspect that you are sick from jalapenos and you have those, it's always a good idea to have those, keep them, because the health department, it's possible for that they can test it to see if they have that and help them do that. But the last thing I would do right now is consume that if you suspect that that could be problematic in there. If it's something where like they're frozen jalapenos that you bought a very long time ago, that might be a different situation. But I would say the best thing to do in every case is the idea of if you are in doubt, to throw it out. If you're ever even questioning whether it's okay, you've probably made your decision that it's not okay to eat something.
And before I let you go, I want to ask, do you think this is going to continue spreading and we're going to see cases rise, or do you think we're maybe at the tail end of this?
It's hard to tell, but a lot of these things are temperature dependent, and we typically see more cases of E. coli or salmonella, especially in this case, with salmonella tied to produce during certain seasons, especially when you have warmer temperatures. We're also going to see that more and more of an industry shift to where we have centralized operations, and some of these jalapenos are coming from other countries and coming long distances. That also harms, if you will, the level of likelihood and severity of there being a problem. So, again, I think one of the biggest things we have to think about is trust. Trust in who you're buying your food from. Trust in terms of the decisions that you're making for yourself and for your family. But also, you might have more trust in a local farmer than you do from some anonymous person, some anonymous company that you don't even know where this stuff came from. So just kind of be aware of that in terms of the fact that we can't be afraid of everything we eat. I mean, as you know, if we're afraid of everything, just paying attention to the headlines, there's not a lot left in terms of foods that have not been talked about of late. But do what we can in terms of, staying healthy, washing our hands when we prepare food, keeping hot foods hot, cold foods cold, paying attention to and acting appropriately with a recall. But also make sure that you make your decisions based on trust.
All right, Dr. Darren Detweiler, thank you so much